Hey guys, it's Kyle Bennett with HardOCP.com, and what we're showing you today is the HeatKiller 4 water block made specifically for NVIDIA's GTX 1080 Ti cards. And we've had this block in for a couple of months, and we're kind of waiting for prices to start shaking out on GPUs, and it looks like that's coming around a little bit. And so we thought we'd dig back into this. Like I said, this is the HeatKiller 4 by Watercool, and got a nice booklet with it. Let's see what she looks like here. Very pretty. So we've got our block. It doesn't have an acrylic face on it. Let me see our hardware, tools, all of our TIM materials. So as you can see, this is a tremendously impressive looking piece of kit. It's interesting. If you come back here, you can see where the acrylic face lays all the way across that, and actually what we have is a sleeve, this black aluminum that runs down over this. Looking at the machining here, we can see, you can see and feel some slight rigidity right there where the machining was done. We do have patches for our RAM. This would be right here was where our capacitors would sit. Our coils or chokes would sit down in this channel, and then we'd have our actual MOSFETs over here. And it looks like it gives really good coverage on the MOSFETs as well. So as far as hold downs on the block, we've seen these done a couple different ways. I kind of like the way they've done this here. I hope I'm trying to keep the reflections off of you. So there's our 4 hold downs that will mount our GPU. There's 2 more hold downs and 2 more hold downs down here to mount on our RAM. And then we have 3 more hold downs down over here on this side to mount down on our entire VRM surface. Also with this kit, we have this is still the HeatKiller 4. This has a machined aluminum backplate for our system as well, or for our card as well. It does come with its own tooling kit and also thermal interface materials for the back. We will get to that as well. So first thing we're going to do is make sure we get any residue cleaned off our VRAM, our GPU, and off our VRM components down here. We're going to hit this with a little bit of isopropyl alcohol, and then we'll go back and dust that off and make sure we don't leave any particulate down from the paper towel. As you might notice here, we've got a ton of TIM pads on here, these thermal pads, and you'll see a lot of singles in here as well. So whereas in the past we've had some blocks where we just saw a strip laid here on the capacitors, and maybe one strip laid here across the back of the MOSFETs, that these other MOSFETs were kind of left out in the cold, and usually these 2 capacitors right here are left out as 2. But this kit does show to cover all those. What's also interesting is this kit does not lay down TIM pads for our chokes. So, and generally these don't get hot anyway, but some people like them there, some people don't, so your mileage may vary. Okay, now we got everything nice and clean here. We're going to move into laying all of our thermal pads down. So we see we have 12 different pads laid out here. You can see here in the instructions for our VRAM and for our VRM modules. Now, these pads actually come in 2 different thicknesses. You can see it denoted here on the instructions. So there's one that's a 1/2 mil, and then there's another set that is 1 millimeter, and then there's actually one pad down here by itself, which happens to be this one right here, which is 1.5 millimeters. None of these are labeled, but you can feel it when you pick them up to actually the thickness of these pads. One thing I would suggest while you're putting all these together is don't squeeze on them, right? Because these are compression pads, and that's exactly what we want them to do, is actually compress onto the surface of our components. So this is going to take a while to get put down. Some tweezers might help you out here. Definitely the edge of a razor knife will help you in peeling these away. So I would suggest when you put these down that you peel up one side of the surface and then lay the pad down, get it stuck before you pull off the covering to install the block itself. So let's get that done. One thing we're going to do in preparation for installing the cooler on here is we're actually going to pull these screws off and remove this I/O plate from this, because the way this block mounts down in here, you'll see how we have to flip it around and it'll make it easier for us. Okay, we got our block cleaned off. We're getting ready to install. You'll see these little white standoffs here where our fasteners follow through. You want to make sure that those are in place. Those are possible to come out during shipping. I didn't have any issues with them, but it's something to take into account. Also, since the way this block fits down on here, and it has this nice clean face on it, obviously you see we don't have any attachment points on the front. Those all feed through the back. So what we're going to do is we'll lay our cooler down here, and we'll move our block around or our card around and set it down on there. So obviously you want to make sure you tamp down all your thermal pads a little bit with something clean. A dot of our TIM material down on here, just right in the middle. Don't need a lot. And so we're going to do, once we get all this put together, we're going to take it back apart and check our mounts to see how everything came together and make sure we get compression down on all of our components with the thermal pads. Okay, so to do this, we're going to use a couple of alignment tools, which are just a small Allen wrench and a little screwdriver we got here. So, going to get her moved around, and we have the 4 GPU mounting points right there that we want to focus on first. So we're going to take our Allen wrench and carefully thread it through there and put it down on our mounting point there. So when we come down on this, we know we don't have to move it that far to get it aligned back perfectly. So take this other one and put it over here. And there we go. We're down on, we look nice and square. So we can use our tool, make sure their holes are lined up, which they should be. Okay, now we have stainless steel fasteners that go on the back of here. These all use washers that come in a company that are supplied in the pack. So we're just going to hand thread these in at first. Make sure we don't cross thread or anything. You want to be able to feel it, make sure it feels good. Okay, so we got our GPU mounting points. We got them. We did not tighten these, all right? So those are not tight. So the reason we're not tightening those is, so there's variances that can be done with in manufacturing in the block and also the PCB. So what we want to be able to do is line up all of our attachment points loosely, then go back and tighten. And when we start tightening, we'll tighten the GPU, then move out rows for rows per there. Okay, so we've got all of our attachment points down and tight. Everything fitted up here really, really well. Had a couple of screws that were just a little bit off alignment-wise, which is not that unusual. And you might have seen me turning my hex head reversed rather than screwing it in. So if you back it up and let it drop, catch the thread, then you can go forward and you don't have to worry about cross-threading. So we're going to let this sit here a second. Then we're going to come back and we're going to take all these off and we're going to look and see exactly what our mounts look like. All right, the moment of truth. Make sure all of our fasteners are out. We're going to try to get a nice lift on this. So, exactly what we expected. We expect to see most of our thermal interface material stay down on here. We did have two pieces here and here. Let's see. Let's look at the mating surface we had. You can see there you can see how thin the thermal material is right there. Did a really good job of mating against our GPU. Let's look on our GPU. So you can see there we've got very little material laid across the center patch of that. So we got excellent TIM coverage there. Okay, so we got our cooler back installed. And remember we took the IO plate off here. So we've got to put it back on before we install. There's a bolt that bolts straight into the cooler here. And then we have a bolt and a nut over here. So we've got her all mounted. So she's on there good. Our PCB looks really nice and flat along here. So I'm really happy with how this came together. It's really built really well. I'm happy with that. So now, obviously this is the cooler by itself. It does come with the backplate that they make. So HeatKiller 4, it's really nice. It's nice and heavy. A lot of people don't like this look, and a lot of people don't like to leave a lot of these components exposed. So what I'm going to show you here is, so this backplate fits on like so. And obviously we've already got the mounts down for their different mounting points. So we'll need to remove the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 screws to put this back plate on. And so also, I mean, if you order the back plate at a different time, you don't have to uninstall the cooler or anything that's really important. Okay, so we got our appropriate fasteners off. So if you look on this side, bring you a little bit tighter here. So you can see these have little these have standoffs, these little plastic standoffs already down in them. And they're not affixed, they actually can come out. So when mine arrived, one of these had come out. So you want to make sure that you definitely have all of these in place all across the cooler face before you install this. When you get it down in place, those cutouts over the fasteners, you'll see sit right in place. So this is really nicely engineered. I like this. Of course, we should probably put on the thermal pads before we go forward. So here's the kit that comes with these. Let's make sure we're lined up. Everything here is right. So we've got our pad down there. Let's rub it down a little bit, just make sure it adheres. I'll go back and pull our coverings off those sides. All right, make sure it didn't fall off. Good, it's not. Everything is where it should be. We're down in our caps. So these are really nice. These bolts here are countersunk and done in black. Need to get the appropriate tool. And while these should not ever not be lined up because of the way this plate's machined, I would go ahead and make sure they're all started before I started threading them. Okay, that comes out pretty nice looking. I wish the countersink depth on some of these is a little bit different than this last row. This last row is flush. I'd like to see them use gloss black heads on this too, but it all makes for a very good looking unit.